like to say that we're a small department that supports big ideas and projects.
I think you have a lot of time and resources here to think about your topic and to develop your topic.
And I think that's also what is beautiful about the EUI, this legacy that we're all sharing and all these ideas that help us move forward.
One of the main problems that I find in my daily life is to tell people what I'm doing, what's my job, explain what my job, and I'm sure you have the same problem.
Exactly the same.
So if you say, I'm a researcher, that's like already something quite difficult to explain. What are you looking for? And then I'm a researcher in law. Often people would look at you, stare at you with a strange face thinking, but the law is just there. You just need to read it online. So how do you go about this question? That's probably the first question I'd like to ask you.
Maybe let's start with what I do. My research project is about the EU budget and how control is shifting in the budget. And there you have a lot of new developments in the last years. You have the recovery funds and now the new defense spending. So there's just a lot of new development. And then for the lawyer, the question is, how does that fit into the treaty that we have? What are the checks and balances in place? Are there new powers that go to the European Union? And yeah, of course, you can write a thesis about that. So I think you can definitely do research in law, even though it's maybe more complicated to explain than for somebody who's in a lab and he does like experiments with chemicals.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's good. So the law moves and it's a moving object, it's not static, and it's not always clear where it's moving and what the implications of the move will be. So there's, of course, a lot to unpack.
Yeah, I have the exact same thing, especially when I'm trying to explain what I'm doing to my parents. I have to sit them down and explain. So what am I doing in law, but also my topic in general is also very cryptic in its title. My title for my work is EU Environmental Law and Local Forms of Life. And it's very funny because when I talk about it with my friends, most of the time they're like, are you in biology? Are you studying frogs or something? And no, it's quite interesting to see also the variety of research here at the EUI is that even within the realm of the law department, we have so much diversity. So I'm also doing EU law, but also very much EU law in context, society. I'm looking at how basically EU environmental norms come into conflict with some normative, uninstitutionalized ways of living from local communities such as farmers, hunters, and how that participates into some regulatory failure or at least regime resistance towards more sustainable practices. And so I do struggle sometimes to explain what my research is and to find, I have to explain it, but I think that in general it's always what is most interesting about this work is that usually you're passionate about what you're doing in your topic. And so it's always kind of a pleasure to explain what you're doing and what's the impact of law, the effects of law, and how to question law as a researcher here at the EUI.
Okay. Yeah, that resonates with me what you just said, to the extent that as the head of the department, I like to say that we're a small department that supports big ideas and projects, right? And maybe you can say a word about that, but it seems to me that there is something that you can do here at the EUI Law Department that you would maybe not be able to pursue in a more traditional national university context. So do you think there's something like this?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So when I applied for the PhD here at the EUI, I was still in my master's program in France. And I come from a background of political science where I did Sciences Po, and then I went into law. So I already had this vision of law as being quite broad, as being in context, having those social legal instincts, which I found was more difficult to implement in a purely legal department in French universities. And I actually submitted one of my proposal to one of my professors, and he was like, this is great, but this is not law. And well, this same project got me here at the EUI, the law department, which says something about the broad vision that we can have here of law in general and in our topics and the diversity of what we can really achieve here at the EUI. Maybe have something with your topic as well.
Yeah, I think you have a lot of time and resources here to think about your topic and to develop your topic. Me, for example, I took an intermission and went for the Blue Book.
Intermission is?
Intermission means you take a pause in your PhD contract. Right. So I did 5 months an internship at the Commission, at the legal service, which was, of course, interesting in itself, but also, helped me reflect upon my topic. And I think that's also something that's very much supported in the law department. I mean, it can be something like this: do an internship, or you do field work. We have friends and colleagues who went all over the world basically to investigate for their research projects.
Right. Yeah. So it's fairly clear. It's true. I mean, you've been here for some time now. That if you stay in the law department, there's not really any boundary to the scope and depths of intellectual inquiry, right? I think I also want to maybe pinpoint what you said about, you come from political science. So one thing we've observed in the law department in the past is this adjacency, this very close position to other social sciences. So, lots of university institutions would like to say, oh, we are very interdisciplinary, right? But here, it's really like this. It's like there is it's actually, most of the work is actually at the periphery of of law and close to other disciplines that at the sort of core black letter law that you just, you read the statutes and you describe it. No, it's more, we operate more at the edges of the circle that connects us to other social sciences, right? And the best examples of that are people like Renaud Dehousse or Yves Mény, who were at the EUI law departments and almost mutated into political scientists, right? Becoming professors of political science in Sciences Po, or taking positions in other institutions as sort of dual identity lawyers and political scientists, right? And for me, that's a sort of in persona example of what the law department does, right? On that point, so I'm putting a pin on that question of generating ideas and research. Can you identify contributions, unique contributions of EUI law to knowledge production, science, and the state of the art, right? If you had to identify one or two.
I mean, what is probably very known is the Integration Through Law project, which was already in the early days of the EUI, if I remember correctly. Which was, the slogan then became this idea that European integration is mainly driven by law and especially by the court and the jurisprudence of the court. And that was very, very influential tradition. And of course now it's been, I guess, almost over 40 years, and that has been also critiqued and transformed. But I think that was very much something that has been achieved at the EUI.
And so what were the scholars that were working on this doing?
Yeah, there was Marco Capelletti, who was EUI professor, and then Joseph Weiler, I think, while he was still researcher here. And they made, I think there have been other contributors, but it's a multi-volume project in the late 80s that then has been inspiring a new generation of EU scholars. But now I think that's kind of, you could also say that now integration with the law is in a crisis, right? Already for decades, because now if you look at the EU and at EU law, it's not really about law as, although I don't know. I think maybe the role of law has changed in that sense. So this really enthusiastic view on law as drive of integration maybe is gone, or maybe is less influential, and now it's more about also a critique of integration of what EU law does. But yeah, at the time it was very influential.
Right. Yeah, so that's probably one of the main blocks that we can identify as a strong intellectual contribution. Even though, as you rightly say, so if I understand what you're saying that law was instrumental to the goal of European integration, and the Court of Justice was the main engine of that.
At least that was the theory. Yeah.
Right, that was the theory, and so scholars commented on concepts like direct effect or the supremacy of European law, the primacy of European law. But then, of course, these projects also offered scholars in the law department a sort of counterpoint, sort of distance to critique that process of integration through law and the limitations and problems that come when a legal system is the instrument of a political objective, right? And you can see lots of issues with that, right? That in French we like to speak about the gouvernement des juges. I have to remind people sometimes that the law department is the law department of all the contracting states and beyond, and so we also occasionally practice legal research in languages other than English. So it's not a bad thing to use German or French, as the case may be. But so that's that dual understanding of law as an instrument of European integration and law as a potentially problematic instrument of European integration, I think is the sort of full coverage of the integration through law tradition. You want to add something to that?
Yeah, I'm going to be cheating because we are in the Antonio Cassese room, and so I think that we are, and I think some of the legacy as well of all these professors that were before us, but also that are with us on a regular basis today, really, I think they inspire us for our research. They're really helping us develop our own ideas with a benchmark that is already excellent, and it's already we're driven by also this legacy. And I think also about the fact that today the context makes you feel sometimes that I'm doing research, I'm privileged, what can I do to actually have an impact in the world? And the contributions of people like Antonio Cassese with human rights, the actual impact he had, not only in law, but in the world in general, I think it's something that makes you feel like with a pen and a paper, well, mostly my computer actually, you can do something and you can have a concrete impact. And I think that's also what I think it's beautiful about the EUI, this legacy that we're all sharing and all these ideas that help us move forward.
The law department of the European University Institute is also extremely invested in the study of international law, not just European law. And this is an evolution that Cassese helped with his scholarship promotes at the EUI, but that really reached, I would say, a tipping point with in the early 2000s, the institutionalization of 3 chairs in international. So we have 2 chairs in public international law and 1 chair in international economic law. And that has created a very solid base and strong foundation for the study of international law, which Cassese, of course, was...
Which is also the motto of the Department of Law.
Right.
European, international,
That's
comparative, right. And experimental.
Well, you know the corporate propaganda, right?
I do. I made my research.
Yeah, that's good. But the last point, experimental, I think is something to which I can personally testify, which is that you joined the EUI for a number of years, 5, 8 years, sometimes a little more. And what people tell you when you join the EUI, because they know you're not going to be there forever, is try to use this time, it's unique in your life this time, to try to use this time to do something different. And lots of people that have come here, lots of colleagues, so certainly for PhDs, this is actually by design, what you do, right? So the PhD is about this. But for professors that join the EUI with their pre-existing research agenda, they could just keep going, right? And incrementally carry on with what they've been doing, right? But the system here, with all the way, in all the ways it's designed, is done to nudge you to try different things and transform your research, right? So I came here as a Comption lawyer, very well connected in Brussels with all the Comption community. And I'm here today after 6 years at the EUI as someone who works a lot on law and technology, right? And I study how legal institutions and technological change work together. You think about AI, right? The obvious example, or quantum computing. How law and technology interact with each other. Is the law too slow? Is the law too fast to regulate, control technology? Can it control technology? And what are the effects on economic performance? So I'm far from the original work that I was doing. And previously, some people like Günther Töbner, very famous German legal theorist, sociologist, came at the EUI and wrote in papers after he left the EUI about his time at the EUI Law Department, said there's a sort of amazing thing at the EUI that I completely transformed as a legal scholar, right? And that's where he came out in I think 1994 with this book. Or maybe you know this book, no? So Law as an Autopoietic System, which is a theory of law as a sort of self-organizing system that is influenced by communications networks and networks of people. And even though that sounds very abstract, it's true, it's a very abstract concept. It's very rich, and people that work in legal sociology and theory today can no longer write anything without referring to this. So.
And is that what drew you to the EUI in the first place? Is that why you wanted to come here? That space of 4 to, I don't know, 10 years to do something differently?
Maybe.
Or the villas.
We should run causation analysis here.
Yeah.
to determine which is the
overarching,
which is the independent variable that connects my choice of the EUI in my career with the fantastic environment in which we are, the great researcher that you can get, or simply the possibility to move to a different station in my research.